but she still feels the same young girl inside. And, you know, can the man still recognise what it was that he fell in love with in this girl all these years earlier?
And with Babushka, you reach the conclusion that the wife, dressed up as the mystery woman, so this is sort of a very Arabian Nights sort of feel to it, she comes and meets her husband, she's in disguise, and the husband's very excited about her, though he wasn't excited about her as the wife, and so it ends in that moment of the meeting. And so there is actually, despite it's a humorous, farcical tale, there is also a certain poignancy about it.
Babushka, 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 yeah, yeah. Babushka, 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 yeah, yeah.
Somehow the word babushka is very appetizing for radio. You know, in the late 50s, doo-wop was a big deal, and nonsense syllables, sha-na-na, were really popular. Well, babushka, although it is a word in Russian, it sounds like nonsense syllables as well, and they're nonsense syllables that go together very well. And I think this unknowingly appealed to the child in a lot of people.
Never Forever was finally released on the 11th of September 1980 and quickly rose to the top of the album charts, making it the first album by a British female artist to reach #1. To promote the album, EMI decided to release a third single from the record, Army Dreamers.
That sleeve photo is fantastic. It shows her again using her body as a canvas to project several different kinds of visual image. Not an image that she's going to stay with, but for the song, this is the right look. And this song is so touching. It's a direct message about how, if you have war, you're going to have young men who dream of being soldiers, go off and become soldiers, and don't come back. And the life is lost. It doesn't happen.
For me, that's the closest that I've got to a little bit of film. And it was very pleasing for me to watch the ideas I'd thought of actually working beautifully, watching it on the screen. It really was a treat, that one. I think that's the first time ever with anything I've done I can actually sit back and say, I like that.
At the end of the year, Kate released the Christmas single December Will Be Magic Again, and then retreated from the public eye. She began work on what would become The Dreaming, her first record entirely produced by herself. The production would be deeply affected by a profound change in popular music. The instruments on which musicians composed their material began to change as new technology made new sounds suddenly easily accessible.
The 80s was really a musical revolution in terms of the synthesizer, and that completely altered the texture of pop music. And also it was a key sound in the sort of post-punk bands like Ultravox, Heaven 17, ABC as well. There was a whole new pop sound that was coming through, and it was post-punk. And I think Kate picked up on all these influences when she did The Dreaming.
And you got these things called fairlights, which you could do astonishing things with, build up everything into this synthesizer and then mess about with it, push things around in all sorts of new ways, which are of course completely accepted nowadays, but it was the favourite toy of the time. Very expensive, but it was a great toy, things like Fairlights. Kate was one of the early purchasers and certainly used it to the full.
We were working on the third album, and there was a guy basically exhibiting the Fairlight, bringing it round to people to show them, and he brought it in to the studio because they thought I'd be interested, and I was very.
But the other strange thing about Kate's actual influences and reactions at the time was, which partly relates to electronics, is that she got influenced by Peter Gabriel's method of songwriting at that time. And Peter Gabriel, in his third or fourth album, he had started to move into writing to a rhythm track. He was not starting with a lyric, he wasn't starting with a melody, he was starting with a rhythm track, a beatbox thing. So here we are, this is electronic beats. Kate saw Peter doing that, and at least to an appreciable degree, she adopted that.
As Kate continued to work on The Dreaming, which was now entering its second year of production, EMI made the strange decision to release a single from the album a full year prior to the album's release. That single was Sat in Your Lap.
I see the people working and see it working for them, and so I want to join in, but then I find it hard. So say that knowledge is something set up in your lap. So say that knowledge is something that you know.
But again, it's one of her real one-off strange singles, isn't it? It's, I think it's absolutely stunning, that song. It's one of my all-time favourites of hers. But as 3 minutes on the radio, or 4 minutes perhaps, it's enormously powerful, chaotic.
It's one of those records that is full of disruptive rhythms. Her voice is pretty wild. It's all over the place. It's really insistent.